On a calm April morning in 2013, Fiona Anderson was spotted walking through the streets of Lowestoft, holding her youngest son's favorite teddy bear. People passing by didn't think much of it. They just saw a mother quietly singing a lullaby. But what no one knew was that Fiona had made some heartbreaking choices that would soon change everything. Just hours later, emergency responders would arrive at a shocking scene, leaving the whole community in disbelief. What really happened behind closed doors that morning? Fiona Anderson, born in 1990 in the United Kingdom, was one of three daughters to Carrie and Michael Anderson. Her father served in the Royal Air Force, while her mother was a devoted homemaker who cared for their three children. Fiona had two sisters, Claire and Laura, and they shared a close bond, growing up in a harmonious family environment. Fiona attended various primary schools in Lowestoft, a town in Suffolk, England. She was often described as a bright and beautiful child who loved Disney movies and playing with her dolls. In her early years, she was outgoing and popular, but as she grew older, Fiona became more withdrawn and easily prone to mood swings. Her sudden changes in behavior worried her parents, who took her to several specialists. Although she was diagnosed with mental health issues, no specific condition was identified, and her situation worsened over time. Despite the efforts of her family to support her, Fiona insisted that she could manage her problems on her own. She eventually met a young man named Craig McClellan, and they began a relationship. In 2008, Fiona and Craig decided to move in together, even though neither had steady jobs. Craig frequently switched from one job to another, leading to an unstable situation for the couple. That same year, Fiona became pregnant, adding to their financial and emotional strain. According to family members, her mental health continued to deteriorate during her pregnancy. She refused to attend regular prenatal appointments or follow the advice of her parents and doctors. Craig also resisted any outside interference from Fiona's family. In June 2009, due to concerns about Fiona's prenatal care and the unstable family environment, Obstetric Services referred her case to Child and Youth Services. Soon after, the authorities intervened to ensure the well-being of the unborn child. On July 21, 2009, Fiona and Craig welcomed their first daughter, Lavina. After her birth, social workers requested that the couple agree to place Lavina under voluntary care, but they refused. Just 2 months later, Lavina was admitted to the hospital, where doctors found that she was severely underweight, likely due to malnutrition. After receiving care, she began to gain weight, confirming that she had not been properly fed by her parents. Despite repeated attempts by social workers to convince Fiona to surrender custody due to concerns about her mental health, she insisted that she was a good mother and would never give up her daughter. Shortly after this incident, Fiona and Craig were evicted from their home due to unpaid rent. They were forced to rely on the generosity of friends and family, which did not provide the stable environment needed for raising a child. For a time, they stayed with acquaintances and then moved in with Craig's parents. Things seemed to improve for a while, and the involvement of social services lessened. In June 2010, Fiona gave birth to their second child, a boy named Addie. However, with two small children and Craig's inconsistent income, the couple faced increasing financial challenges. Fortunately, Craig eventually secured a stable job, allowing them to rent a house in Lowestoft by February 2011, and it appeared that they were finally finding some stability. However, by May 2011, social services were once again alerted after neighbors reported that Lavina and Addie had been sleeping in a double stroller for 13 nights and had been fed only biscuits. When social workers and the police visited the home, they found the children malnourished and confined in playpens. The children were assessed, and it was determined that they were emotionally affected and had delayed language skills, leading to their inclusion in child protection plans for neglect. Fiona felt victimized and deeply offended by the suggestion that she was not a good mother. Craig, meanwhile, was often absent from home, claiming he was working extra hours to provide for the family, although his income did not reflect this. Despite their troubled relationship and the challenges they faced, Fiona and Craig did not take precautions to prevent further pregnancies. In May 2012, their third child, Kaiden, was born. Social services quickly became involved due to concerns about the parents' ability to care for another child. By August, child protection officers decided to initiate legal proceedings against the family. However, due to a lack of follow-up by a social worker, the case stalled. As their financial difficulties continued to mount, Fiona discovered in late 2012 that she was pregnant with their fourth child, a girl. Fiona's mental health, already fragile, was further strained by the hormonal changes brought on by her frequent pregnancies and childbirths, leaving her unable to cope with the mounting stress, according to her family. Fiona Anderson was growing increasingly isolated and refused any help from others, allowing only Craig to remain close, though he was drifting further away each day. By then, Craig had started an affair with a beautiful Polish woman he had met at work. The idea of moving in with her was highly appealing, as there would be no children to care for, and they could live a carefree life together. In March 2013, Craig decided to leave Fiona and move in with his lover, though he never disclosed the real reason for their separation. He simply packed his belongings and left, abandoning Fiona with 3 children, another on the way, and no job. Meanwhile, social services continued to monitor the family's deteriorating living conditions, especially now that a fourth child was soon to be born. On the afternoon of Sunday, April 14, 2013, Craig visited the house, bringing chocolate biscuits for his children. After spending some time with them, he told Fiona they needed to talk. During their conversation, the 24-year-old revealed that he had started a relationship with another woman and that their separation would be final. This news confirmed Fiona's suspicions about why Craig had been staying out late, supposedly working extra hours in recent months, and his intention to leave her and the children. Fiona's reaction was explosive. She completely lost control, and during the argument she grabbed a sharp object from the kitchen and stabbed Craig in the shoulder. He fell to the floor, bleeding, while their terrified children watched. Craig managed to escape from Fiona's rage, covering the wound with a napkin, and called an ambulance which took him to the hospital around 8 p.m. At the hospital, Craig lied to the doctors, claiming he had been attacked by a stranger trying to steal his phone. He later explained that he lied to avoid further complications with social services, fearing his children might be taken away and placed in foster care, a threat they had faced many times before. Craig believed Fiona was solely to blame for their problems with social services, and he denied any responsibility for the negative assessments they had received. As he prepared to leave the hospital, Craig received a text message from Fiona. In it, she told him to say goodnight to their children, as it would be the last time he would ever see them. Craig left the hospital and went to his new partner's house, not giving the message much thought. The hospital staff reported the attack to the police, but by the time officers arrived to speak with Craig, he had already left. They decided to visit the last address they had for him, the home he had shared with Fiona and their children. When they rang the intercom, Fiona refused to open the door and claimed she hadn't seen Craig in over a month. With no further leads, the police left. At around 8:30 a.m. on April 15, 2013, the police and emergency teams rushed to a parking lot after receiving a call from someone who had found a woman's body in a residential area. Paramedics tried to resuscitate her, but unfortunately, she was pronounced dead at the scene. The investigators noticed 4 names written on her body, and judging by her heavily pregnant appearance, it was clear she was in the advanced stages of pregnancy. After examining the scene, it was apparent that the woman had fallen from a high building, resulting in her immediate death along with that of her unborn baby. Forensic analysis would be needed to confirm the cause of death. An investigation was quickly launched to identify the deceased woman, and surveillance footage from the area showed a woman wearing the same clothes as the victim. This footage helped the police identify her as 23-year-old Fiona Anderson. With Fiona's identity confirmed, the police learned that she was known to Child Protective Services and had 3 children. Police rushed to Fiona's home, and when no one answered the door, they forced their way inside. What they found was beyond anything they were prepared for. The 3 young children were discovered lifeless on the bed in the main bedroom. They were tucked in, surrounded by stuffed animals, each with a kiss mark in lipstick on their foreheads. Messages written in green marker covered the walls. One note read, "I love you and will keep you safe. I tucked them into bed with their teddies. They love their teddies. They look so peaceful together." Each child had a message written on their torso, "I love you," along with their name in green ink and a small heart on their abdomen. Investigators also found a torn letter in the trash, offering a heartbreaking glimpse into Fiona's mental state. In the letter, she wrote about her inability to cope with Craig's abandonment and expressed her intent to take her own life while also taking her children with her. She reiterated her belief that a mother never leaves her children behind and pleaded for Craig to allow them all to be buried together. The children's bodies were taken to a hospital for autopsies to determine the causes of death. Meanwhile, police cordoned off the apartment to continue their investigation. The tragic news spread quickly, and neighbors and friends gathered outside the building, leaving flowers, teddy bears, and other tributes in a makeshift memorial at the entrance. Craig, accompanied by his mother, also visited the site, where they were met by a crowd of media reporters. In an interview, Craig admitted that he had a gut feeling it was Fiona when he heard the news about a woman who had taken her own life. He expressed his devastation, saying he had just lost his entire family. During an interview with investigators, Craig confessed that Fiona had attacked him the previous night when he told her he was leaving for another woman. For the police, Craig's departure appeared to be the final trigger that led Fiona to end her life and the lives of her children. A young woman who knew the couple described Fiona as a charming person who didn't seem like the type of mother who would harm her children. As detectives continued their investigation, they discovered that, just hours before the tragedy, Fiona had posted desperate messages on social media, revealing that Craig had left her for someone else. In her posts, she wrote that all she ever did was love him, and despite the pain he caused, neither she nor her children ever gave up on him. She also uploaded photos of her children, expressing how much she loved them. In one of her final posts, Fiona shared an ultrasound image and wrote that she was expecting a baby girl. After piecing together all the evidence, investigators concluded that it was Fiona who had tragically ended the lives of her children. Authorities released surveillance footage to the media in hopes of piecing together the final moments of Fiona Anderson's life. This strategy proved effective, as around 13 people came forward to tell the police they had seen the young woman walking through the city on the morning of April 15th. Thanks to these witness reports, officers were able to obtain clearer footage showing Fiona wearing a long white coat and black shoes, captured outside her home around 6:20 a.m. on that tragic morning. Fiona was seen heading toward Craig's residence, where she left a note in his mailbox. She then dropped off the keys to her apartment at a local hostel so Craig could pick them up later. Afterward, she wandered through the city for over an hour, carrying her youngest son's favorite teddy bear. Several passers-by reported that as she walked, she softly sang a lullaby. By 8:30 a.m. that same day, a cleaner in a multi-story parking garage spotted Fiona climbing up to the top level, still humming her lullaby. The cleaner watched as Fiona climbed onto the railings and then, without hesitation, leaped into the air, ending her life and that of the baby she was carrying. At this point, the police had received the results of Fiona's autopsy, confirming that she had died from severe head injuries consistent with a fall. However, investigators had not yet determined the cause of death for her 3 children, so further tests were needed. A close friend of Fiona's created a memorial page on social media in her memory. The page quickly filled with comments, many asking for respect and remembering Fiona as a warm and kind-hearted woman who would do anything to help others and adored her children. Other comments from friends and family expressed their grief over the loss and hoped that Fiona had finally found the peace she was searching for. Amid the mourning in May 2013, partial autopsy results were released for the children, revealing that all 3 had drowned. The post-mortem examinations found no signs of abuse or violence. According to the police's reconstruction of events, Fiona had prepared the bath, and after submerging her children one by one until they stopped breathing, she dried them off, laid them on her bed, and covered them with blankets, placing their favorite teddy bears in their arms. Once the examinations were completed, Fiona's family was able to claim her body, while Craig and his relatives took custody of the children's remains. In a televised interview, Fiona's parents, Michael and Carrie, pleaded with Craig to allow their daughter to be buried with her children, as it was her final wish, expressed in the letter she had left behind. Despite their heartfelt pleas, Craig refused to let the children be buried alongside the woman who had taken their lives. On June 5th, surrounded by friends and family, the funeral for the children was held. Fiona's family was not allowed to attend. 10 days later, around 75 mourners gathered to say their final goodbyes to Fiona. Dozens of people, many dressed in pink, attended the funeral, which also served as a memorial for her 3 children. A horse-drawn hearse carried Fiona's body to the cemetery, where she was buried alongside her unborn daughter. Fiona Anderson's mother expressed deep gratitude to the local community for their support as they navigated the aftermath of the tragedy. She described Fiona as an amazing woman and a devoted mother who adored her children. In the wake of Fiona's death, many began to question the roles of both the police and social services in the tragedy. As a result, the Independent Police Complaints Commission launched an investigation. It was revealed that officers had visited Fiona's residence just hours before her death while investigating the stabbing of Craig. The inquiry centered around whether the police could have prevented the tragedy if they had entered the home, rather than merely speaking with Fiona through the intercom. After a thorough evaluation, the commission determined that there was no way for the officers to have predicted what would happen in the following hours. Between 2009 and 2013, social workers had visited Fiona's family more than 50 times. There were documented concerns that the children were often left in their stroller and, on some days, were only fed biscuits. An independent expert involved in the investigation noted that Fiona had been reluctant to cooperate, which hindered any psychiatric evaluation and prevented necessary legal actions. Although the deaths of her children weren't deemed predictable, the expert believed that if the children had been taken into care earlier, the tragedy might have been avoided. The coroner overseeing the case echoed this sentiment, stating that while it was not his intention to assign blame, it was evident that key steps, such as evaluating Fiona's mental health, had not been taken. He called for UK health authorities to prioritize providing support to parents with mental health challenges. The investigation also revealed communication failures and a lack of coordination between the various services involved in Fiona's care. It emerged that the assigned social worker was an unqualified trainee who had not handled the case appropriately due to inexperience and a lack of understanding of the severity of Fiona's situation. This worker should have been supported by a more experienced mentor who could have guided them in dealing with such a complex case. The head of social services in Suffolk defended the lack of intervention, acknowledging that some families are harder to engage than others. However, he also emphasized that it is the duty of social workers to protect children and provide the right support to families. As a result, several recommendations were made to improve the system's ability to support families in crisis. These included better training for social workers, improved communication between services, and a more proactive approach to identifying and assisting those at risk. Fiona Anderson's case shocked the community and underscored the need for meaningful support and monitoring for families facing similar crises. Mental health analysts confirmed that Fiona deeply loved her children but had a distorted perception of reality due to her mental health struggles. Although she was aware of her actions, she had lost her sense of direction after Craig's departure, leaving her isolated with her darkest thoughts and fears. Fiona felt lost, and the only solution she saw to free her children from future pain was to take them with her to a better place where they could all be happy together, free from the stress of bills and financial worries. Despite knowing about Fiona's struggles and the challenges she faced with their children, Craig abandoned them all for a new life with his lover. He ignored the warning signs, including the final message Fiona sent him, which hinted at her intention to take drastic action. Many people sympathized with Craig, sharing his grief as a father who had lost 4 children. However, others criticized his behavior, considering him partly responsible for the tragedy. They believed Craig should have recognized Fiona's deteriorating mental health, especially after their first child, and taken steps to help her. Instead, by leaving her pregnant with their 4th child, he had abandoned her when she needed support the most. In this tragic story, the only innocent victims were the 4 children. They suffered from their mother's mental health problems, their father's abandonment, and the lack of protection from the official agencies that were supposed to safeguard their well-being. Thanks for tuning in to Unreal True Crime. If you're intrigued by mysteries from around the world, check out our new channel, Latin Crimes, where we dive into the gripping true crime stories of Latin America. Don't miss out. Subscribe now for more thrilling investigations.